Judy Moore, conference manager at APAP for 15 years.
That's right.
My goodness. What did you do before you came to APAP?
That is the best question. So, you know this phrase, cutting your teeth?
Uh-huh.
So I cut my teeth, believe it or not, and this is a big gig to cut your teeth on, as the booking agent and tour manager for Sweet Honey and the Rock,
Wow.
an internationally acclaimed a cappella group that tours, 70 shows a year, no less. So for almost 10 years, I did both jobs at the same time.
Wow.
I was on the road for 70 concerts, and I was booking them 2 years in advance,
Right.
which was really easy to do because it was really more about saying no to people than figuring out how we're going to fit this Australian tour. And, Carnegie Hall, we can't miss that date and like that. So I got so familiar with producers, managers, agents, tech crews, front of house staff, drivers, airport people. So it was baptism by fire, so to speak. So when it was actually the year before 9/11 happened, but I decided in 2000 that it was time for me to get off the road. It was time for me to close that business. And I had the road bug seriously, so that was really hard, but I was tired. And I said, okay, I want to do a position that has me, after taking a break with a lot of yoga and walking, after taking that break, I want to do a position that has me connected to the arts, but not in a really intense, direct way. But there was literally I was visiting a girlfriend in Mount Rainier, Maryland, and Karen Spellman happened to be coming to a meeting at her house. Now, Karen Spellman, who was the conference director of APAP for 5 years, and at that time, she was actively the conference director, was like, oh my God, we've been looking for you. Where have you been? We've been looking. And I've been doing my yoga and walking and going on retreats, right? So, Omega and California, here and there. So I was like, well, I'm back. I'm grounded. She said, well, I have a job for you. I want to see if you're interested. And Kim Chan was the vice president at that time. And I had known Kim from working, when she worked at Washington Performing Arts Society, and I was doing Sweet Honey, and they were bringing Sweet Honey to the Warner every year. And Karen Spellman, of course, started Taste of DC, and I knew her from Kennedy Center work. So they knew what I was about. I went in for an interview for APAP and got the job. And when I came into APAP, Katrina, as in the big Katrina, had happened. And Karen, who had been the secretary of SNCC, so like her politics real clear, showed me the first APAP conference, how APAP can be used not just for the active, managers and agents who are set up for business, and APAP has members that are big, like Opus 3, to smaller, one-person shops. She said, we're giving, and I can't remember how many booths it was, for the Katrina effort, and that's like, exactly what does that mean? So that meant, there were all these jazz musicians and artists who clearly had lost homes and, careers were, gravely affected. And she said, we're giving showcase space, the ballroom at the Sheraton, and we're giving, so that was my first picture of APAP, really was of this incredible giving and concern beyond making money, beyond what people think of as the industry and the industry's interest. So that was powerful for me.
Sure.
That was really powerful, and gave hotel rooms. So so it just that stuck really hard, and that literally was my first APAP conference.
So there's a lot that happens behind the scenes that most of us are really not that aware of, and that makes it all work and moves us and you from your office to this. We're on the conference floor.
Wow, that's excellent.
How do you make that happen?
Oh my God, your mind. When we're on site, it becomes so clear to me that the show could not happen without a really strong, as they call it, decorator for the expo hall, again, which is where I'm focused. And with, as Mario likes to say, 400 booths on 3 floors of the New York Hilton, the only hotel in New York that could house our professional development sessions, our opening and closing plenary, the big awards luncheon, and 3 levels of 400 booths. We have GES coming in every year, building the booths on site, right? Putting up, the pipe and drape, the tables, chairs, servicing our show throughout all three days of the expo hall open, but they're actually 4 days if you include load in on Friday 9 to 5, loaded on Saturday 9 to 1, and then the show opens 2 o'clock on Saturday, closes at 6 o'clock on Monday, and load out is 6 to 9, and they sort of never stop. They're here way early in the morning before any of us show up, and then they stay much later. 16 and a half hours of expo hall active hours with a GES info desk. I hire 3 floor managers to be 1 per floor, and now I hire an APAP point person just to be stationary because I can't during the show. So I'm here, there, putting out fires, and it's like such a great question, because I don't know if an exhibitor coming in or any attendee coming in could imagine, okay, this really started in February in terms of me contacting GES for floor plans. Are we going to keep the same floor plans? Are we going to change? The back and forth on the floor plans alone takes weeks. And that's just how we will have the booths and where the booths will be. So that's not taking into account what color will the drape be. And that's not taking into account the department, marketing communications, has to work with programs department. What will the theme be? What will the colors be? So there's a whole other side of folks operating to make the beautiful display every year that happens at Reg, those counters, the wavy count, all of that happen. The meter boards that are in the expo hall that lists the names of all the exhibitors and numbers. So it's so funny. Every year, I usually have about 2 people come up and go, how big is the APAP staff? And I say, well, we fluctuate between 12 to 15 full-time staff people. They go, you're kidding. So this 12 to 15, this posse puts together a conference that has 4,200 bodies walking through it over a 5-day period. This year we're January 10th through January 14th. But every year it's a 5-day conference. I said, yeah, we do it. And of course we have the help of a very robust board and a very strong conference committee and fantastic co-chairs, conference committee co-chairs, and the director of programs, and obviously under the leadership of the CEO and president. And then this year, we were very lucky to get a new conference director, Neil Narnar Madison, who, in my 15 years being at APAP, is the first conference director I've worked with, who comes with such a dynamic and complete breadth of knowledge about how events work. So it's bigger than APAP. It's much bigger. When Barack and Michelle, when President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama were in the office, she did, she's done that level of event. So to have her has been incredible from top to bottom. She came in late. She came in like the end of July for an event that happens in January. So that it's made such a huge difference in the quality. We also had a new GES contact come in, Mary Palmer, and I've never worked with somebody that detailed. And if you imagine with this show and the number of moving parts that, again, most people can't even imagine, she's caught everything that we needed to be caught. From the floor sticker issue, to this person maybe needs to turn another way and face it, and this booth needs it. She's just been incredible. So this for me already has been the best APAP I've lived through as conference manager. There's also the relationship that APAP staff who work in the expo hall that we have to have with registration. Because issues, so the whole time people are doing business, issues are coming up that involve booth badges and somebody's registration and their membership. And so there's a lot always happening at the same time. Expo hall alone, that doesn't take into account 1,300 showcases taking place all over New York City and all the boroughs and in the Hilton. That doesn't take into account the number of professional development sessions happening even before the conference formally opens. We have the consultations taking place and the consortium meetings. So there's people always complain like, I just can't do everything I want to do when I come to APAP. And Sandra Gibson used to talk about it being a happy problem that APAP has. That people come and there's just so much to do and take from. And you could go to a showcase at 11 a.m. You could go to a showcase at 12 midnight. And if you are looking for fresh new talent, what I'm noticing without even having all the stats, it's like, wow, APAP is really the spot. Not to be like tooting APAP's horn, like it's literally the spot, because you do have the showcases, right, that are showing you, the actual performance of the artist and whether they're circus performers or they're jazz artists or hip hop artists, and then you also have the marketplace, as it were, the expo hall, where people are doing sometimes even a different kind of business, and they're able to, as they tell me, book their seasons 2 years in advance. So why is it important to a one-woman, one-man shop? So why is APAP so important? And I've been told repeatedly, because this is where I really book every season. This is where I really, for my business, pin the dates down, make it happen. There are a lot of people that aren't happy with how we sell the booths. So we have the seniority, as it were, tier system. And I try to keep that to August every year, and I try to keep it to 25-year plus. I try to keep it to the same rhythm so people will just sort of know in their bodies when they can buy their booth. But it's based on rewarding exhibitors, and it started in the way back machine many years ago. They came up with this, the board came up with this policy to reward exhibitors that come year after year after year consecutively. So if Judy comes 9 years in a row, then Judy gets to buy her booth before new people. If you miss a year, unfortunately, yes, you actually do go back to zero. So yeah, right, it's painful. Oh my God, it's painful. It's totally an ouch. But I do see how it works. It's taken me a long time to understand how it works. Like, how could this be to our advantage? But it actually helps us manage the flow of purchases. And selling out the hall, which, knock on wood, we sold out this year, and we tend to sell out this hall by November, is again, I've learned the term happy problem. And I come to New York from DC in January with a waiting list of usually 35 people. That means I have 35 names and mobile phone numbers. And I could literally go to my computer, shoot a text, shoot an email to a business, and I cover my bases, so I shot it to 6 different people, and I heard back within 5 minutes. I want the booth. The business did not care what size it was. The business did not care how much it cost. The business did not care where it was located. So that for me, I've had to ask over the years, like, what keeps people coming back to APAP? What is, literally what is the draw? Yes, of course, how I've mentioned, 22 contracts. This is like, I love the Think Iconic story, but Think Iconic was a new exhibitor. And Wayne, who is the president of Think Iconic, would call me literally every week. I mean, we developed the relationship of relationships. He wanted to make sure he did everything right. Even though he had gone to many trade shows and been in the business for a while, he knew, he had heard APAP is really a different kind of animal. He networked, did all the follow-up. He did he gave parties. I mean, he really went every extra effort. And he called me in April. So the conference ends January. He called me in April. He had 22 signed contracts. I mean, like, to report, he said, I just want you to know so you can share with people how this can really work. The follow-up is so important, especially in terms of when you make the investment in the expo hall. That means you had to pay for a membership. That means you had to pay for a full conference registration. That means then you had to pay for your booth. There are 3 financial transactions. So we're not like other trade shows, conferences, that have it bundled. We don't have it bundled.
Well, in addition to that, then there's the airline ticket and the hotel.
Oh, thank you for saying it. Thank you for saying it. So people call me to build a budget.
Yeah.
And they're starting with exactly what you said. They're starting with, okay, I've done the investigation on how much it's going to cost me to fly from LA to New York. I know how much my hotel is going to cost for 6 nights. Okay, now tell me what else. Because people obviously want to build the budget before they make the decision. I do say to people, it's really not a good idea to make the financial investment unless you're willing to do the follow-up when you get back to LA, when you get back to Laramie, Wyoming, when you get back to Waco, Texas. It's really important, like for me, when I do the webinars and all that, like the most important part is the follow-up, especially if you're in your first, second, third year, to really get those relationships established in a consistent, steady way. And what's also interesting is that, I think the term goes 7 degrees of separation between people, or like sort of like basically everybody knows each other or somebody knows somebody. So I'm at North Carolina Arts Market the last time it happened. And I meet Jim Fleming, who I knew from my days working with Sweet Honey as a booking agent. So I never saw his face. We never. And so here we are at North Carolina Arts Market. We do a face-to-face. We start back and forth, and people are like, could you guys take it in the hallway? And we're just like, so we're going, do you know so-and-so? Do you know so-and-so? And when I was with Sweet Honey, I worked with a promoter who took Sweet Honey to Carnegie Hall every year and did that consistently for, 15 years. Took them to Boston Symphony Hall. Took them to Philadelphia. So I knew her very well. He had the information that unfortunately, I asked about her, how was she doing? He said, oh, Judy, I didn't know she had passed. So it became one of these things where we locked in an entirely different way through the association of like, so-and-so knows so-and-so knows so-and-so knows so-and-so. I hear over again, and whether it's from presenters, exhibitors, artists, with APAP, it's amazing how connected the field is. So for example, when Mario came on, it was amazing how many people knew him from so many different places, from his establishing Yerba Buena Art Center, and all. It's amazing. I sort of can't get over the connectedness that already exists. One of the biggest requests we get at APAP, in my department, in the programs department, in membership, can APAP please provide at the conference more places for us to network? So we try, 8 o'clock coffee, We try all these different things, and we had the cyber cafe conversation area on the 3rd floor and all of that. And what we realize is people are going to figure out when they're here where and how to connect with folk.
Yeah.
Now we have the first time attendees, the new colleagues. We have the orientation where we match mentors and mentees, and so we can set up formal channels. But what for me, regardless of what career path I've taken to get me here, for me the thread is you can have a really incredible presentation and display. I remember my second year, there was a guy who spent $7,500 at that time on just a display, for his booth. Like that wasn't the booth cost. And you can have all of that, but if you are not a person in that booth who has a certain kind of presence in your booth and believes a certain way in the talent you're offering or whatever you're offering, whatever your offering is, it's short-lived how far that really beautiful display will take you. And I noticed that when we get, there's some people very happy about their traffic. So in the surveys, I have fantastic traffic. Traffic, I'm learning, is this word that it's a shorthand that people use for how many people that they meet at their booth, come by their booth, walk by, literally traffic, walk by their booth. And for me, the real case study, the case studies I like to focus on and think about are the ones where, I'll use the example that I'm totally making up. Ralph did not have a fancy booth. Ralph didn't even have a big booth. But Ralph was a wonderful, magnetic guy that people liked. And I have friends that are like business people, MBA and business people. And I mean, they say to me all the time, Judy, people want to do business with people they like. Which initially, for years ago, I was like, really? Like it's not what you quote unquote bring to the table in terms of numbers and this and that. And they said, at the end of the day, people really want to do business with people they like. So how else, when you think about it, would you get to that point, let's call that point X, unless you learned who that person was and developed a rapport with them? And, trust is a scary word to use, but almost like a sense of trust. You do need the back and forth interactions. It's not just when you and I are at the conference. It's when you're back home, I'm back home. We're still like, did you hear about thus and so? Did you know about thus and so? And people like to do group touring if they can, right? So they like to figure out, how can I connect with 4 other agent managers, and how can we connect routes so that they make sense? So let's just focus on the southeastern region of the country, and let's see. Okay, so you have a North Carolina date, and I have a Florida one, and all of that can happen once you've established the relationships.
Yeah. So with such a big event, and in New York, and I don't know if necessarily the current times are much different, even though they are somewhat different. Do you all have any concerns of any kind with all these performers and equipment? And you do have the badge control, but for the showcases, you can pretty much walk in. How do you handle security? Any concerns over security?
That's a great question, and I've heard parents answer when asked, "Do you have a favorite child?" And they're like, "I love all my kids the same." But my favorite people are the security people. We've hired an ambassador security firm. They came strongly recommended, and that we should use them every year. And it's been one of the best decisions the conference has made. And you noted, they do check badges to make sure everybody that comes into the expo hall has a badge, and they're very good at it. What the other side of what they do that people don't know, because we have them posted many places, and they aren't wearing police uniforms. So I think people, for the most part, may not know, unless they're looking at the front door guys and women, that they're actually walking amongst folk, but they're walking around and they're making sure that the peace is kept, things are calm, because there have been, as you almost alluded to, sometimes things can get tense for folks. You know, this can be a very cooperative environment, and competition is real. I mean, it's so real that every other year we'll have a group of people come to us. I think the opera section should be together, the folks that do opera, and I think the jazz, you know, people want to have neighborhoods. And every year we go to poll and, you know, spend a lot of time trying to think about what the repercussions of that would be. We ultimately get back the strongest feedback. No, people don't want to be next to their competition. Yeah. So like, I'm very aware of, you know, how this can work in the air. So I rely really heavily on ambassador security throughout the entire conference. As you know, we have showcases also that happen in the Hilton. So I've also added ambassador to walking around. I mean, we have midnight showcases, and a lot of the showcases offer wine. So, you know, those elements are just very real. What I do, one of my favorite things about this particular security firm is that all of the agents are willing to go beyond. So they're willing to say, hey, Judy, that person left their laptop in their booth. And I'm able to contact that exhibitor and say, I don't know if you know this, but you left your laptop. I strongly suggest you go get it. And yes, we have security. And yes, I think you should still come get it. Even yesterday, we had 2 people come back to their booth and say, okay, there was a box here with whatever, and now it's no longer here. So, this doesn't get talked about a lot because these incidents really are very, very few. But they do so much beyond just, I'm sorry, I don't see your badge. People fall every year in the expo hall. Yeah. And that's something that, again, if I'm on America's Hall 2 and there's a fall on America's Hall 1, I may not ever know that there was a fall. And security comes, Hilton security comes, so you have different reports being filed. Anytime anything like that happens in this building, and the expo hall has, as we know, tricky escalators. I'll just call them tricky. I don't want to jinx myself. And, we're all, trying to do a lot at the same time. So we're not always paying attention to where we're walking and all that. So, again, ambassador security is involved in helping with the falls. All I have to do is say, for example, with the opening plenary, can Rick go to the grand ballroom and be there for 20 minutes while there's a smudging ceremony? Now, they may not know what that is, but that, the guard who was willing to go for 20 minutes got an education. Yeah. And we were also in compliance with stuff people like, and who would think about that? Like, would you have thought, if you attended the opening plenary, that there was a security guard very close by in the event kind of thing?
Yeah.
All of that's happening.
Yeah. And what's a smudging ceremony?
Oh, Native American was sage. As a prayer is said to clean out the spirits that may not be so pure.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
Last question. So, even though there's only 12 full-time people on the staff of APAP,
yes,
by the time you add up the staff, the security people, the GES people,
right,
and I know you also have volunteers.
Oh, 135.
What would be the total count of people, not necessarily at one moment in time, but let's say throughout all 4 days of the conference,
right,
on and off, time in, time out?
The best answer I can give you, and the most honest answer I can give you, is that I have absolutely no idea. You know why? Because I didn't even talk about the Hilton staff, the New York Hilton staff, that numbers go in the hundreds, that are taking care of us as APAP, as the conference, from days before we even get here, the team even gets here. They are preparing for us. to days after we leave, because we have people who come early, attendees that come early. We have, as they call them, shoulder days, people who stay later to do business, to take in New York. So the Hilton staff, again, I can't say enough good things about what they put in to make this happen, which I think a lot of times people so don't recognize or see, is tremendous. It is so tremendous. And I'm literally contacting them probably easily 9 times a day from the time I get on the ground here.
Anything else you'd like to share with us?
At the end of the conference, some of us are dead. I mean, so what I mean by that, some of the, like, we have nothing left in our tank.
Yeah.
And we're in motion. The conference team is on the ground 9 days. A lot of the staff comes up later, but we're here 9 straight days, never stopping until we drop at the end. And I hate the fact that, you know, people are asking me to come to showcases and I can't come and this and that, but it's like, I know in order to make it into the next day, I have to have my Epsom bath. But the one thing that Mario came in and enforces so strongly is that all staff attend the closing plenary. So it's this one time in the conference where all of us are sitting in 2 rows on the front, and not only do we get to stop in that moment and take in a fantastic speaker and what that speaker has to say, and whether it be Rita Morena, which was just fantastic, and she looked at me and I just was like, oh my gosh, she just looked at me. We get to get that inspiration, which so many attendees love about APAP. Like, if they stay till Tuesday, because there's a certain kind of inspiration they gather from that closing. They know the closing plenary speaker is going to usually be very strong and very inspiring. And even though there have been times when Mario had to call me on my cell phone, Judy, get down here, Judy. And I'm like, doesn't he know I haven't slept, you know? I'm always glad. And I go, wow, the programming alone. You know, the programming alone of APAP. Because Mario loves to tell me, Judy, I never came into the expo hall until I became the CEO and president. I came for 20 however many years as a presenter, funder. So not everybody who comes here comes to the expo hall. And he constantly reminds me of that. There are people that come only for professional development to get that education. There are people that come only for the showcases.
Wow.
So yeah.
Fascinating.